So today I wanted to compare the most popular and current Logitech webcams. Now the Logitech C922x is selling for about $80 right now on Amazon. The Logitech StreamCam is selling for about $150. And finally the Logitech BRIO, which goes for around $167. Now what I'm going to do today is show you what the default camera settings look like out of the box for each of these, then do a bit of color tuning and image tuning using the Logitech Capture app, then compare what each looks like with those corrections in place. And if you've seen any of my other videos on this channel, you'll notice that I've turned off the blue floodlights in the background because two of the cameras, the C922X and the BRIO, couldn't really cope with that, and I looked a lot like Violet from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So I'm going to go here, in this case, in the order of cost. So starting with the Logitech C922X, it maxes out at 1080p at 30 frames and connects via USB-A with a fixed wire at the back of the camera. And this is the image using all the default settings. So autofocus is turned on, auto white balance is enabled, and you'll notice it's a bit brighter than the Sony a7 full-framed mirrorless camera that I used just a moment ago, but the image is still pretty sharp, but I'm kind of washed out. Next, this is the Logitech StreamCam, and you can see it's capable of 1920 by 1080 at 60 frames, and it connects via USB-A with a fixed wire at the back of the camera. Now this is also using the default settings, and at this point the image looks pretty similar to the C922X, but it has a few more capabilities, like being able to rotate the camera 90 degrees in its base, an AI-based auto-framing facial tracking mechanism, and it also comes with either a graphite gray or white housing. Now finally, this is the Logitech BRIO, and it's capable of 4K Ultra HD at 30 frames or 1080p at 60 or 30 frames with a very wide 90-degree field of view, as you can see here. Now it's also got a built-in IR sensor that supports Windows Hello biometric login that uses facial recognition to sign you in with multi-factor authentication. That's probably why it's the most expensive of the cameras that I'm comparing today. But you'll also see the default image settings and what it's producing is a bit orange looking by default. Okay, so now I'm going to transcend space and time, and once I've tweaked the camera settings, I'll show you just how close I can get them to match the accuracy of the mirrorless camera that you're seeing right now. I'll start with the C922X, and I'll switch its microphone on just for an audio sample. And I've set this for frame rate priority. That tends to help in terms of the camera hunting for the right exposure. Now, the auto white balance is set to my room lighting around 5500 kelvins. Image settings then for all three of these cameras, for all four of the settings that you see here, tend to be default around 125. Now for this camera, I've set brightness to around 100, contrast is around 130, and sharpness is also around 130, and I've turned up the saturation to around 170. So for the StreamCam, I'll switch on the microphone so you can get a chance to listen to the audio. And the settings were pretty close to the default, so I've set frame rate priority in this case. I've left on the backlight correction, as you can see, and the autofocus is enabled. The white balance is closer to 5500 kelvins in our case. And you can see that the sharpness and the brightness are around the factory defaults. I've set the contrast up a little bit to 135, and also the saturation, I've turned that down to around 100. Now let's try out a couple of other things here with this one, like the auto framing. So here, as I move around in the frame, you'll see that the camera is able to track my my face and my head movements. And this is going to be a great feature, especially for those who stand while presenting, like for teaching or other types of presentations. And finally, here's the Logitech BRIO. Now, I'm going to switch on the microphone so you can get an audio sample. Now, I've prioritized the frame rate, as you can see here. I've also got the image field of view at 90. HDR is turned on, which, by the way, doesn't do a lot as I turn it on and off. You'll see it's not doing a ton of work. Autofocus is still turned on. The white balance, again, is set to around 5500 kelvins. And we've got brightness, as you can see here, that's closer to about 60. The contrast is around 150. We've also got sharpness around 150, and then the color saturation is around 90. So it still looks pretty washed out to me, but it's much better than kind of the orange image it was producing earlier. Now let me show you all three Logitech cameras plus the Sony, and you can see the difference between each of them. Now I know it's not entirely fair to put these webcams up against a camera and glass that goes for about 10 to 20 times the prices of any of these new, but it's important to see the difference in dynamic range and also the color compared to the full frame camera with a low aperture lens. Also, based on my judgment, I'd say the StreamCam has an advantage over both the C922x and the BRIO. And this is one of those cases that I've come across many times where the 4K rating really doesn't matter in this case. So on image quality alone, I would say both the C922x and the StreamCam with 1080p sensors are superior to the 4K BRIO. Also remember that if you're using these cameras for online meetings, these services tend to max out at 1080p 30. Also, I prefer the sound, by the way, of the microphone that's built into the StreamCam. You know, given that it's around 3 feet from my mouth, it really doesn't sound too bad. And if you're using something like OBS with plugins, you could probably tune it to sound pretty good. So that was my Logitech webcam shootout, and hopefully you enjoyed the different comparisons between those cameras, and this helps you inform your decisions. And in a few weeks, I'll be comparing the brand new Dell UltraSharp webcam alongside the Elgato Facecam, so tune in for that as well, and we'll see you soon. Thanks for watching.